You voted for it, so here it is. I just can't believe Youngblood's Strike File didn't win. 4 whole years after the Ultimate Marvel Universe was created in Ultimate Spider-Man. Click the link in the gray box in the corner to learn more about that. The architects somehow convinced Marvel proper to go ahead with a new, updated iteration of the first family, the original heroes of Marvel, the Fantastic Four. And before I get into talking about my favorite Ultimate Marvel comic, I'm gonna eat a banana. If I ever pause and you hear some chewing during this video, that's me eating this banana. So good. Make sure you like this video for bananas. It helps me out, and it provides me with, some small amount of money so I can go buy some more delicious bananas. This isn't my favorite Ultimate Marvel comic. No. No, not that one either. Or that one. Definitely not that. Or that. No. It's the only good series to come out of the Ultimate Universe. Ultimate Comics Team Up Issue 10, starring Spider-Man, the Lizard, and Man-Thing. Adoy. Everybody should be born bananas, they're really good. And fun fact, the Ultimate Fantastic Four was conceptualized by Grant Morrison, who was, at one point, going to write it. But then he left Marvel and went back to DC. Released in 2004, written by Brian Michael Bendis, and plotted by Mark Miller, or Millar. I'm still not entirely sure. I think it's Miller, but why would you spell it with an A? And gosh golly, you can really notice that this story was written by Brian Michael Bendis, with art by Adam Kubert. This is Ultimate Fantastic Four, Volume 1, The Fantastic. Gee, what a great title. Also, if anyone watching this video was unlucky enough to see 2015's Fantastic, then this book will seem pretty familiar to you. The book begins 21 years ago in 1983 at a hospital. A man and wife are brought their newborn baby. Oh, holy but Jesus, what is wrong with its face? This is definitely Adam Kubert. And what's wrong with that baby's hand? Did its arm get dislocated? 11 years later, a gang of bullies drowns a nerd named Reed Richards in the toilet when big old Ben Grimm... What the f*** was that? Jesus, that's a Midtown Comics app. I need to eat this banana to calm down. Anyway, Ben Grimm kicks in the door to the bathroom, tosses the guy against the wall, and scares the others away. And this is a very interesting way to plot out a 9-panel grid for a comic. Like, just imagine if this is what Dave Gibbons did for Watchmen. Huh. That's actually not too bad. Kinda hard to read the words. Anyway, Reed and Ben go back to Reed's house after school, where his parents look at his bloody nose and, Jesus, what is wrong with the children in this book? Hell's bells, it's terrifying. Reed's dad says that he never met a kid who gets in more trouble than Reed, and then starts talking to Ben about football and basketball and sports. And then he's like, "Hey Ben, you staying for dinner?" Then Reed goes upstairs to his room alone. Reed writes in his notebook, when his mom comes up and brings him what looks like tomato soup and a glass of milk. Then Reed's dad runs upstairs and chastises him for pulling apart the blender, and then throws it into Reed's tomato soup and milk, making a huge mess that he then orders Reed to clean up or else he's gonna get his ass kicked. Later in the garage, Reed hangs out with a grown-ass man as he explains to Ben his device to reach another dimension. Reed says that there are any number of dimensions of space and time inhabiting their exact location. It's just that they live in this dimension, and Reed plans on breaching that barrier and sending something through to the other side. Then Reed's shitty little sister comes in and threatens to tell on him, blah blah blah. Later that evening, the only light on in the Richards household is Reed's. Reed's dad crashes through his door and finds his son sitting on the floor next to a smoking device. And then he's like, "This is a fucking madhouse, I'm gonna go insane!" 6 months later at a school science fair, kids are set up with like, oh my Jesus, these fucking faces, man. God, horrible. Do they live next to a nuclear power plant? Reed prepares his dimensional teleporter and teleports his little toy car successfully. And instead of everyone like calling him an idiot and like just telling him to get a life or whatever happened in that shite Fantastic Four film, people are like actually wowed, and Willie Lumpkin, who in the normal Marvel universe is a mailman for the Fantastic Four, makes a call. Later at Reed's house, Willie Lumpkin speaks to his parents about their son and says that he wants to recruit him for a school for the gifted. No, not that one. The Baxter Institute. At the Baxter Building, which looks like it was teleported from the middle of Dubai to the center of New York City, Reed is finally with his own kind. Reed's introduced to Dr. Storm and his hot daughter Sue, and is shown the end zone. It's like a scientific approximation, like a holographic setup for what they call the end zone, I think is how it works. It's another dimension. It's the dimension where Reed was sending his fucking toy cars and shit. 5 years ago, this little man named Molkovic is yelling at his students and, Jesus, what? Look at him. Look at how disgusting and disheveled he is. I don't care how smart this guy is. When you're running like the premier technological / research / whatever it is this school does for the US government, I don't think you want this little fucking goblin guy waltzing around. Look how dirty his clothing is. He clearly doesn't wash. Imagine how terrible he smells. You'd think the head of the school would tell him to clean up his act or get out or get some Clearasil or something for his face. Comb his hair. Go to a dermatologist. Molkovic leaves the student lounge and the other students make fun of him except for one. Victor Van Dam. No relation.
And a mindset to master the most epic of splits. Who can say where the road goes, where the day flows?
Then Victor calls everybody else idiots and leaves. Later, Reed and his dog sit in the end zone room when Sue asks him how it's going. Reed says that he hates himself for not cracking some idea he has for dimensional teleportation, and he feels like he's not contributing anything to the school, and Sue says that he's got this. Sometime later, Reed and his dog return to his dorm room to find Victor rewriting Reed's formulas. Reed screams at him to get away and get out of his room and get away from his notes, and then Victor runs off. Later, Victor eats spaghetti in the dining area when Reed comes up to him and says that Victor was right. Then he asks if Victor wants to help work on the project with him. And meanwhile, Dr. Storm asks this horrible-looking little man to come to his office. In his office, General Ross of the U.S. military speaks with Molkovic. Ross explains that all of his work is actually owned by the U.S. government, and that they found some encrypted files on his computer that had to do with biotechnology, something which is apparently illegal, and that Molkovic is specifically not allowed to work on. Then he calls Molkovic's experiments immoral, and Jesus, he's so disgusting. There's no way this motherfucker could have a job in such a place where you have to, meet with all these people and all these higher-ups. Molkovic's experiments and labs are confiscated and he's fired. Then he leaves and says,
"They told me this would happen."
Then he dramatically points, and everyone's like, "Fuck is wrong with that guy?" Cut to Nevada, 2004. Sue, Reed, Johnny, and Victor, along with the U.S. military, prepare for their first test. Then Ben Grimm rocks up. Later, the test to teleport an apple begins, and everyone stands way too close, especially the dog. Here's a spoiler alert, the dog doesn't come back. As the machine is about to activate, Sue and Reed share a kiss. Then a blinding, burning white light engulfs the desert. Reed wakes up in the sand and dirt. His body smokes, and his torso has been extended to extreme lengths. He calls for help in a dry, quiet voice. In the aftermath, Dr. Storm and General Ross find the apple unmoved, but the young scientists and their dog gone. Then they turn around and find a long, slender creature slithering towards them from the desert, and Ross is like, "Good God, we opened a dimensional portal or something, we gotta kill that thing!" But the bullets ricochet off of Reed as he pleads with Dr. Storm to help him. Then the whole machine explodes again. Later, Ben Grimm wakes up somewhere in Mexico and stomps down the street until a truck slams into him. In France, Johnny Storm wakes up in a hospital bed. He calls for help and tries to get out of his restraints, but as he does, his whole body begins steaming and smoking until he is fully engulfed in flames. Sometime later, after Dr. Storm and Reed have created this suit to keep his body in a normal human form, Dr. Storm gets a call about Johnny being found in France. Then we learn that they still haven't found Sue. Reed suggests that there's something going on here. Johnny has taken the element of fire, Ben rock, Reed water, and Sue has disappeared into thin air. Cut to Sue, lying on a disgusting, stained, pretty used mattress in a disgusting, stained, pretty used shithole of a cavern. She calls and asks if anyone's there, when a voice comes from behind her. The voice of Molkovic! He stands like a disgusting sack of agitated red mole-covered flesh before his army of moloids. Which is what, those were the things he was cooking up in the Baxter building that got him fired. Later, Johnny learns how to use his powers while Reed and Ben sit down and attempt to come to terms with what happened.
How did this happen?
There was an accident.
This is your fault?
Yes.
Oh, my life is you!
Ben, please calm down. Ben slams his giant rock fist at Reed, but Reed moves out of the way and then wraps himself up around Ben. And Ben's like,
What the hell happened to you?
Reed says that he'll explain if Ben calms down, and Ben's like,
Okay.
Then Reed explains what happened and that they still haven't found Sue or Victor. And then Reed promises to fix this. Later we get what is perhaps the coolest scene in the comic, which demonstrates how Sue's invisibility works. Meanwhile, Molkovic just watches her and talks her through her concentration or whatever, and she finally realizes who this giant fat man is. Dr. Molovic! Wait, Molovic? Jesus, not even the writers could get his name right. Mole Man starts waxing philosophic about Hindu beliefs and asks Sue to come with him, and then he's like talking about how he found this ancient society underneath the surface of the world, and this is where he's been living all these years. And then one of his disgusting moloids starts humping her leg because, edgy! So Molkovic kills it. Mole Man tells her that the moloids are the reason he was fired from the school, and then explains that they are 1.4 miles beneath the surface, and shows off this giant multi-TV screen pillar thing, and says that it was once owned by an ancient race. Then he tells Sue that he loves her. Continuing Marvel's tried and true tradition of having a much older man slash teacher slash mentor wanting to bang their young, hot, female student slash friend slash acquaintance. Molman says that to show a gesture of goodwill towards her, he will bring her brother to her. At the Baxter building, Reed, Ben, and Dr. Storm meet up with Johnny when suddenly a loud boom shakes the city, and the streets below them explode, and this giant dragon monster Naga thing begins destroying New York. It's wreaking havoc, and they all look through the glass until Johnny accidentally melts a hole and falls out. But he flames on and learns that he can fly, prompting Ben to jump out of the tower. And he is immediately grabbed by the Snaggletooth Naga and flung into its mouth. Reed turns himself into a ball and bounces out of the building before he tangles the monster up himself. Reed tells Johnny to try and throw some fire at it as Ben is launched back into the Baxter building. Then he charges out of the glass and clocks the monster back into the hole from which it came. Reed says that they aren't done here yet, and the trio then make their way into the dark depths of the earth. Are we at the bottom? Is this the floor? Wait. Did you hear something? No. You didn't hear that.
That's my stomach.
No, shh. Just be quiet real quick. Hold on. Johnny? Can you burn brighter? The Fantastic Three stand surrounded by thousands of moloids. Then Dr. Molkovic says,
Fantastic. Truly fantastic.
and they see the Mole Man and his horny, disgusting moloids who are holding down Sue and most likely groping her very inappropriately. Johnny gets super hot and blinds / scares away Molkovic and the moloids, which allows Sue to escape to Reed. Sue says that she thinks that Mole Man sabotaged the experiment just to get them all here, and Molkovic says,
You ugly girl. You so easily betray my emotions and confidence. I am a doctor and a scientist.
When you were children, I would tolerate your immature insubordination. But now, I have to insist on your respect and...
Dude, my dad fired your butt like 100 years ago. Let it go.
This guy was one of your teachers?
Did you culture these organisms from scratch?
Blah, 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 blah. They're not listening. They're not listening again. It's right here. It's not. No.
Doctor, you've been down here a long time. We'll take you back to the surface. We'll help you explain what happened.
Don't!
I'm just trying to understand what you've done down here and why. Doctor, please. Was it you? Was it you who sabotaged our transporter experiment? Why is he pointing at us?
So disappointing. I had such hopes for the future, for such hopes and dreams for us.
Did you do this to us? Molkovic orders his moloids to eat, kill, / whatever they desire to the fore. I really don't like that last one. It has some very negative connotations. As the superpower quartet fights the plant-based creatures, the entire cavern begins to crumble around them and collapse. As they fight, Reed sees on one of the many telescreens a recording of Victor. The technology 1.4 miles beneath the earth begins erupting and the cave crumbles down on our heroes. A deep chasm opens and swallows Molkovic as Reed attempts to save him. A giant pillar falls towards them, but they are then shielded by a force field created by Sue. Then she lifts them out of the darkness. Later in the end zone room, Reed stands with Sue and Dr. Storm. They discuss the Four's new place in the world, and Sue tells him that they'll get through it together, if he wants. Reed smiles down at her and says that they still need to find Victor. Then Reed begins scanning the end zone quadrants as they stand together. The end. I hope you enjoyed this episode of What Is. If you did, again, just leave it a like, or share it with anybody who might be interested in the Ultimate Fantastic Four for whatever reason. I'm going to try to maybe not do a bi-weekly, fortnight every video, mainly because I am in college right now, and I'm trying to have a social life to an extent. So I don't have as much time, and I'm just trying to do a whole lot of things right now. So I'm thinking maybe if I can just get at least one video out a month for a little bit, that would be a little better until maybe I find some spare time and I can just chuck in a whole lot of videos at one time so I just have a sort of back catalog. I don't know, I'll see what happens, but right now I'm just trying to get one video out a month. I have a podcast, which is monthly, called the Cruising Altitude Podcast. It is based entirely on the filmography of actor Tom Cruise. It's hosted by me and my friend Saul, and for the month of September 2019, we are discussing The Color of Money. Listen to the podcast to hear what our thoughts about it are. But I will see you all next month for my Halloween special. Ooh, spooky. Which I will not reveal to you just yet, but I will give you a hint. It has to do with the Ultimate Fantastic Four. I'll see you next time. Bye!